You can go to Syria. There's a saying that you can go to any traffic light and you speak any language in the world and you'll find at least one or two people able to speak that language. So it's a highly educated place. We love learning. We love education. We love engaging with people and kind of reading. It's a brilliant place. The problem is there is no solution for life. The solution for life is to live life. That's the only way, and to live wherever you are. And there are things that you can't control. Somebody who grew up in Syria, one of the advantages of growing up in Syria is you don't have this idea that anything is possible. You see all these, the people who fall for the manosphere, men who can't talk to girls. Well, why can't they have to go to a course to learn how to talk to a girl? It doesn't make any sense. The way you talk to a girl is by talking to girls. And the first few times you're gonna, have your foot in your mouth. And then you learn this works, this doesn't work, and you learn that. But how can you learn how to talk to people by not talking to people, by going to a course to learn to talk to people?
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to The Science of Self, where you improve your life from the inside out. We have a guest today. This is Hussein Halak. He's an entrepreneur, a strategist, an author, and several other things from the look of the website and some information I've been able to glean. Hussein, pronounce your name correctly so I can try and get it in my ear, and then tell us about yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me, Russell. So I'm Hussein Halak, and I like to think of myself as, entrepreneur, and which is a word that I had to learn that it exists. I didn't know that such a thing existed. And recently an author. I wrote my first book after 5 tries, and I'm someone who's enamored and kind of blown away with the diversity and how much we can explore in life. And I love for other people to live life that way, which is more of an exploratory discovery journey that they're on, and get the most out of it so that they can have joy, happiness, and in whatever field that they want. That is kind of my mission and purpose, and that's why I'm here.
And we appreciate you being here. Normally, I would start going directly into the book to get some of the background and learn some more about it. I'm looking here at the cover, so apologize for not enough eye contact, listeners. But in this instance, I'll speak for most Americans, we don't know a lot about Syria or the area in general, or even anything in particular. Would you mind giving us, as Americans that grew up here, can you give us some background and let us understand a little bit about your childhood and your growing up time?
100%. Syria is a very, very unique place. A lot of people can say a lot of that about their country of origin, I would say, but it is in many ways. Number one, it's a very diverse country. It's a country or an area that had many empires pass through it, and that impacts us in many different ways. I'll give you the ways. When we're growing up in the same family, we have people that look African and people that look German, who are cousins. In fact, two of my aunts, who are sisters, married 2 brothers, and they live next to each other. And one aunt, God bless her soul, the kids come out of the house and they look African, like they're dark skin. And the other house, they come out of the house and they have green eyes, blonde hair. So this is and this is something important, because it means that Syrians are a lot of people. I think one historian said that if you want to find out if you want to know where everybody kind of comes from, go to Syria, because it has the Silk Road. Damascus, where I grew up, is the oldest capital in the world. We have houses there that are 1,200 years old that people still live in them. So it's a very ancient place. It has a lot of history. It's in fact, while Jesus was born in Jerusalem, or Bethlehem, I would say, in Palestine, Christianity was born in Syria. We have the first church in the world. It's where Paul we have in Damascus. It's where Paul, I think, went on the path. So it's a lot of these things meshed together. So we grow up with a lot of diversity. In fact, you can go to Syria. There's a saying that you can go to any traffic light and you speak any language in the world, and you'll find at least one or two people able to speak that language. So it's a highly educated place. We love learning, we love education, we love engaging with people and kind of reading. It's a brilliant place. However, when I was growing up, when I was a kid, at the early stages, it was, I would say, interesting, But then after that, well, while growing up, I would say the sanctions started because we had a dictatorship, regardless of, let's say, how great the place is. We had a dictatorship. So the sanctions were starting. So I remember vividly having a very good life when my parents are both.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Ahead,
this
please.
would be what, in the 80s?
This would be,
80s
I was born in the 70s. That's a great question. I was born in the 70s, but I came kind of to be aware of life in the 80s, early 80s.
Okay.
So
we have a timeline.
No, that's a perfect question. In the 80s, at the early 80s, we were like, Syria was kind of, you could live a great life. You had, people were paid nicely. I remember my parents holding parties, even though we were not a very rich family. We were middle kind of family or poor family. But then sanctions happened. And I remember vividly standing in line to get tea, sugar, and rice. So that, and in portions. And that's what we had as a family to live until the early 90s when things opened up again. So that kind of formed my upbringing and informed kind of my questioning of why these things are happening, how these things. So that is the atmosphere that I grew up in. And so Syria is a lot of historic, nice stuff, but it's also a country that been plagued with dictatorship. And then at a later stage in 2008, 2009, I think, and 10, the uprising until the civil war in 2011, where I wasn't involved, I wasn't there, but obviously all my family and my extended family, I've lost a few cousins that I grew up with in that war.
Very interesting. A couple things here. I had a guest just last week who lived in London. He was British, English, lived in London for a while. And it's always interesting for me to talk to someone I've been to London once. I've known some people from there. And the difference between the US and London, in the US, an old building is 150 years old. In London, an old building might be, I don't know, several hundred years old. But when you're talking about Syria, you're in the thousands for a lot of different things. It's mind-boggling. Do you see? There's got to be some benefit to that, just society-wise. Try to reckon how American society is benefited, but also shorted by the short history that we have. You have so much to draw from for your history. It's really fascinating.
Funny enough that you say that, because I liked America for the relative, I think that connection between America and Syria. First of all, that if you grow up around a lot of people that don't necessarily look like you and don't feel like they should exist in the same place. If you go to other places in the world, you would find people look like each other, have kind of I would say, a certain belonging that overall, I mean, obviously different countries, different areas in the world, but in general, Syria is that unique place because if you go to Jordan, you have less diversity. If you go to Iraq, lesser diversity. Turkey, I think, has that diversity. But if you go to Syria, Lebanon, they're known for that diversity of heritage and the diversity of belongings, as in ethnic belonging. We had all kind of religions, all kind of sects within the religion, and you live next to each other and you live with each other, and you learned how to navigate those things where we had, we have a saying that religion is for God and the country is for everyone. So I kind of looked at it, that's something I always loved about America, where it's a place, at least in the past, where anybody can come from anywhere and build a life for themselves. And that is something that was not possible in Syria. While Syria had a very, very rich history, and you could immediately, in fact, there's these stories where people would be digging foundation to actually build a home, and they would stumble on something historic, and that's very, very happens a lot. And they would bury it because if they tell the government will come take the land. So they would basically come across a treasure, and that treasure would be buried so that they don't lose the land. So it's a rich history, but there's no future because you're growing up. I was studying engineering, electronic engineering, and integrated circuits. The only factory I could go work or where I can work is Intel or AMD, which existed in America. That's kind of my fascination of science. All of the scientific kind of discoveries were coming from America. The space age, which I was fascinated with, come from America. So I saw America as the future of the world, and me being in Syria as the history of the world. That's kind of the connection that I made. I was like,
what a crossroads, yeah.
Yeah, and throughout all my life, I wanted, because I loved music as well, loved jazz, loved blues, loved rock, and I said, like, I would love. In fact, the city the second city that I love after Vancouver, where I am right now, is New York, and I kind of knew everything about how it looks before going there in 2022. So it's fascinating, that kind of dichotomy, but also relativeness or kind of relatedness between who America is, or the American people, and who Syrians are.
And that's great. So Syria was not a war-torn country then?
No.
When you were growing up. When did you leave Syria and where did you go?
In fact, you're right. After the sanctions happened, the average salary of an engineer there is $100 per month, just to give you an idea. And it wasn't enough. So after sanctions, my family turned from, a middle class family to a poor family. We were not making ends meet. So in my, let's say, teens, I experienced what it's like to be poor and not having enough money and needing, like, sometimes not having enough food. We would have, let's say, one meal a day or stuff like that. So when I went to university, I started working to make money to kind of pay for myself to handle any as an adult, even though in Syria you don't leave kind of your parents' house and live on your own until you're married. So usually it's on your late 20s, 30s. Sometimes even you get married and you stay if the house is big enough, you stay there. So it's a kind of a different culture that way. By 2002, I started a company that builds websites online that are like games. And we ended up working with a company called Space Tunes, as in TOON. And it's the Disney of the Middle East. We did such a great job, and they acqui-hired our team. Now, I had no idea what acqui-hired mean. A lot of the early beginnings, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just trying stuff because there was no other thing to do. And they ended up loving what we were doing, and that gave me the opportunity to go to Dubai. So in 2003, I landed in Dubai and started my life there.
Okay, 2003. All right, so that brings us, and then at some point, you moved to Vancouver.
Yes. 2014.
Your residence now.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Some of the things are starting to tie together in my mind. As you said, you were majoring in electronic engineering. Possibly in the States, at least, one of the most difficult majors you could follow, I think, short of chemical engineering. So you're well educated, you're well versed in a number of things. That clears up some question in my mind as I looked at your website. I'm scrolling down here. And maybe you can just give us a quick breakdown, since we're on the geek side of things, for a second about, if you want, Next, Decentrum, and Momentable. Those sounded pretty techno when I looked into them, and I was surprised. That's a branch off from a self-help book or a self-development book.
Yeah, I think I was lucky because while growing up, we don't have the thing called a career. You're either a doctor, an engineer in Syria, or whatever it is that you are is nothing. These are the two respected fields, and everything else is like whatever you're in. So, but I loved writing. I used to draw. I wanted actually to go to art school, but I couldn't see, because the reason I went to engineering is a simple reason. While I love technology, I couldn't own a computer. Computers are very expensive. It's like, think of it right now, if you were paid, let's say, $110,000 per month, a computer being $170,000. So you have to wait 2 years and basically not spend any of your salary to get a computer. So there's no chance I could get a computer. So I said, I'll go to the university, at least I'll see a computer and I get to work on it. So that's why I went to university in engineering. And obviously, because to have the title of engineer in a Syrian society is a big deal. So my parents would never accept that I would go just to do arts. So I loved a lot of things. And because there wasn't like a career advice, or the concept of building a career doesn't exist. So I pursued anything that came my way. So if there's a job that I can, paint interfaces or a house, or let's say a store front, if I can paint it and make some money, I will do that. So whatever came my way, I said yes. And I ended up, by the time I graduated, I had a marketing consultancy because somebody said, "Oh, you do great work. Let's partner together." I said yes. I had no idea what that meant. So it's all, whatever opportunity came my way, I took it on. And that's why my love for arts, hence Momentable. In 2006, I built the largest marketplace for Middle Eastern art in the world. It was my second tech startup. It was a massive media success, but from a business perspective, it wasn't that successful. So when I came to Vancouver, and after working with a lot of startups and helping mentor a lot of entrepreneurs, I got introduced to blockchain, and I loved the technology, being a geek. So I started studying it, and I saw there's an opportunity to teach others about blockchain. So that's why we started Nexicentrum as more of a teaching company, a program that helps people understand technology. And the idea was, any new technology, we help people do it. So we launched then the technology transformation program. We introduced a lot of museums it was actually a free program that we do with museums to help them upgrade their technologies. And Momentable was this application that helps people, or helps artists and museums showcase their collections outside of their walls. I was always in love, if you entertain me for a second, I was always in love with Picasso and Dali. And that was from the year 1992. And it took me until 2022 to land in New York and go to MoMA and see my first Picasso. 30 years to see my first Picasso. Now, bear in mind, right now people say, well, what's the problem? You can search online and you can find, let's say, some paintings. But actually, you will be surprised that a lot of the paintings, if you go to the Picasso museums, I was lucky enough to go to Barcelona and see the Picasso museum. There's so much. I was blown away. I thought, I'm an avid lover of Picasso. And it's unbelievable how much I didn't know and how much I didn't see. So what I wanted, and through the work that we did, is to allow people who don't have the ability to travel to certain cities for whatever reason. I mean, it's expensive to go to New York. I was lucky to be able to experience that, and it took me 30 years. If people love art, there's no way to visit those museums unless it's physical. Many museums try to put some of their collections online, but it's also it's not enjoyable. So I wanted to create an environment where you can experience online what it's like to enjoy these paintings. And we wanted to give the museums the ability to extend their presence and their impact beyond the walls that they had, and to make money doing that so that they're not dependent on the donations and grants, which are now threatened, as we see right now. So that is one of the reasons why we built Nexicentrum and Momentable.
Very interesting. You talk about painting, you're into art, you talked about music. What kind of music do you play? Do you
Yeah, I
sing,
play.
or were you ever in a band?
Yes, I was.
That's
In fact, my first dream, and the dream that I would leave everything for, well, almost everything, is being a headliner in a rock band. It was my fascination. I loved Whitesnake, Metallica, Deep Purple, whoever. I was fascinated with rock, metal. And I joined. It's a small community in Syria because it's an Arabic country, but there is a small community that loves rock. In fact, rock is very big for Syrians and in the Arab world, especially the Levant area. There's a small community, but very powerful community that loves rock. So I ended up headlining several bands there. I had my own groupies. And it was kind of famous. So I trained my voice and I played guitar. I loved the guitar, and it was so everything, as I said, everything that I got a chance to do, I did. So I played the guitar, I headlined the bands, I drew paintings, and I actually exhibited them and caricature. So I acted in university plays as well. So everything that I had the chance, I was like, somebody says, well, there is this. I was like, okay, let's try it, because let's do it. And that's one of the philosophies that I encourage people to do, is that life offers you a lot of things. It's okay to build a career, but stop trying to act like this career is the only thing that's available to you. And the idea of focus, I'm vehemently against the idea of focus the way it's presented right now. That focus is the way to success, because you need to define success in a different way. And that's how I lived my life, and I've enjoyed it thoroughly. And of course, there was ups and downs all the time, but that's the way it is.
And this brings us the cover art, I assume then is your art on the book?
I wish I was that
Oh, no, it's not.
I wish I was that kind of artist. Antonio Pede, which is a friend of mine, we became friends after working together, is a Portuguese artist. I was searching for what I wanted for my book. I was writing the book, and the idea behind the book was that after COVID, I was very afraid of leaving my kids with nothing but, like the memory of me. What I meant by that is that I felt I had a responsibility to teach them, educate them, give them the wisdom that I've learned from my life, so that they don't have to make the same mistakes. They can make newer mistakes and they can learn from it. I also felt a responsibility towards the people that I can mentor. I was lucky enough to be able to contribute to people's lives in the community here in Vancouver, mentored hundreds of entrepreneurs. My course went to thousands of entrepreneurs that ended up building companies for hundreds of millions of dollars worth. So, and I had a lot of people reaching out to me, but not everyone could reach out to me. Not everyone could give the time. So I thought, what if I put all my wisdom in a book that I can then give it to them? In fact, the book is Creative Commons. Anybody can take it. Anybody can kind of recreate it how they wish. So I wanted it to be available to everyone. And I wanted it to create a feeling, not just, it's kind of my answer to I love self-help. I've learned a lot from it, but I hate the process-driven thing, like 1, do this, 2, do this, 3, do this, because life doesn't unfold quite like that. So I wanted a book that unfolds like a conversation. It's like if you're walking in a museum with someone or a gallery and you're talking to someone about life, and then you're watching paintings and you have a euphoric feeling. That's what I wanted the book to be like. So I talked to Antonio and said, can you read the book? And if it resonates with you, will you do the art for it? Of course, I paid him for it, but also I wanted him to get in touch, and I had zero direction for him. I said, just what you feel. I want just what I told you, I told him. And he created the art. It took us a while, but then this is the outcome of the book, is that every chapter has an art attached to it. So you can look at the art, you can kind of involve in the chapter and the conversation and what it opens up.
Let me read the blurb about your book, and then you can expand on whatever
Please.
parts of it you want. Hussein is the author of The Dark Art of Life Mastery, a guide for living fearlessly, second-guessing less, and embracing true purpose. Through personal stories and sharp reflections, Hussein explores the mindsets and strategies needed to overcome life's toughest challenges. You've certainly had the challenges. It certainly seems like you've overcome a lot of them, but there's a lot of phrases in there. Okay, let's start with the most obvious. Why the dark art? Why is life mastery a dark art?
Because it's not straightforward, and it will look differently for each one. I remember I like this out of Harry Potter. I like when they were doing potions and things blow up in your face. Even though the teacher is there and telling them, here's the potion, and they have the book, but somehow there's the personal factor. There's that wizard, factor that they have to apply. So there is the formula, but there is also your personal take on it. And that's what I wanted it to be. It's more like it's art, and it's dark because you're kind of feeling your way through it. You don't know how it's gonna end up, how things are gonna kind of unfold. So that is the atmosphere that I wanted to tell. You can get life mastery, but it's something that you have to work at it. It's not something you can open the book and say, oh, okay, I do 1, 2, 3 and I got life mastery.
Dark art, I like that. Yeah, it does have a Harry Potter feel to it, and it's not my generation, but I have watched them. I didn't memorize them like my kids have, but that is an interesting concept for the potions class. Yeah, everyone had, I taught chemistry for a while, so we put that in real life. Everyone has the same process to go through and the same equipment, but a lot of times everybody gets their own results, some better than others, and some might be catastrophic. We blew up a few test tubes and things in my chemistry classes along the way. Your phrase, embracing true purpose, that encapsulates a lot of things, I think, that we talk about frequently here. Understanding your personal values and making sure that your actions and your lifestyle blend in with those personal values. Is that what embracing true purpose encompasses for you?
Yeah, true purpose is not something that sounds nice. Like, oh, my purpose is to help people. And for me, it's active choice rather than, passive, surrender, if you wish. So what does that mean? It means that I can start my life with a certain view of life. I started my life wanting to become a doctor because I wanted to open a hospital and help a lot of poor people. That's basically what I had in my mind. Life unfolded in a certain way, and I had certain opportunities to take, and there was certain doors that are closed in my way. Does that mean I let go of that? And does that mean I'm stuck with that purpose or that? No, what I learned is I can choose something different because the moment has shifted. Every time you take a step, and that's the kind of where the dark comes in. When you step forward, it's kind of like driving in the fog, if you ever drove in the fog. To see the next 30 meters, you have to drive, a few meters to see the next one. So it's kind of like that in life. You have to take a step forward, and then things shift around you, and then you have to make a different choice. And that is what I wanted people to have access to. Sometimes what we do is we want life to work in a certain way. And we believe in that to the point that if you see the most successful videos on YouTube, is like, this is how you get rich. This is how you do drop shipping and, get passive income and you solve your life. The problem is there is no solution for life. The solution for life is to live life. That's the only way. And to live wherever you are. And there are things that you can't control. Somebody who grew up in Syria, one of the advantages of growing up in Syria is you don't have this idea that anything is possible. In fact, a lot of things are impossible in Syria. Like, it was impossible to be an astronaut. It was impossible to be president, for sure, when there is a dictator. So we don't grow up like Americans who, and not a knock on Americans, but in America, it's like, you can be anything you want to be. But in Syria, you can't be. In fact, the things that you can be are very, very limited, depending on what you can't even pull yourself out of the class that you're in. Like, you can't, let's say, be an entrepreneur and build a business just like anything. You don't have access to resources. Even the internet, just to give you an idea, because I was an engineer, I was lucky enough that when the internet first came to Syria, it was only available for engineers and doctors. And the speed of the internet, I think in 1998 or 1999, I used to wait 6 hours for a website that is 3 megabytes to download on my computer. To the point when I moved to Dubai in 2003, one of the biggest things that, like, I didn't care about the job or the money. One of the biggest advantages is that in my office, I had a 2 megabyte, let's say, bandwidth of the internet, which meant a lot, which meant it was like I used to stay at the office. At the time I wasn't married. I used to go to the office at 7 a.m. and leave at 11 p.m. just because I had access to all of this internet, and I was like learning so much. This is what hunger is like. And if you don't experience it, there's no way that you can explain it to others. So in one way, having that limitation gave me a different view on life, that how do you work with limitations and how do you still accomplish? I became, a headliner in a band, even though I was in a country that didn't appreciate the kind of music that I wanted to do, but I still did what I wanted to do within the limitations. I learned guitar, even though I didn't have money to get lessons in guitar. There was no internet to learn from, just like right now, you can open any YouTube and learn like a ton. We used to beg and kind of, on our knees just for someone to give us a training exercise that they've learned somewhere, or they traveled and they learned. I remember for my Picasso, my friend, his father was an artist and he had money, so he had books about that. Now the book is $100. $100, remember, it's the salary of an engineer for a month, and there's no place to buy it. So I remember on my knees and said, I promise I will not damage this book. Can I see the book about Picasso? And I remember sitting for a week and just like going through this book and just looking at the paintings. That's what I had access to. If you're living in New York, you had 120 or more, hundreds of museums that you can go to. We didn't have that. We had one national museum and I spent all of my time there. We had one national library and I spent all my time there as much as I could. So these are the differences. And when you learn to work with those limitations, you have a different view on life, and that kind of shaped how I wrote the book.
This is a topic that's come up with us before. I take a piece from the beginning of your discussion there about you can't do necessarily everything you want. You can't be possibly what you want to be. Is that kind of an American thing that we teach kids that in your experience? You're much more internationally aware than I am, or is that, I don't know, where does that, do you understand my question?
Yeah.
Do other countries tell their kids the same thing to some extent, or is it an Americanism?
I think, to my experience, I think the American dream is quite unique that way. The idea of the American dream, and it doesn't come from, I think, just what people teach. I mean, that's what it became, that cliche that, oh, you can be anything. But I think the idea that if you look at, let's say, the immigrants who landed in New York, you would come from nothing. You would come, let's say, be Irish, for example. And even you're Irish right now. If you're Irish, you're considered white and you're considered privileged. But at the time, Irish people were kind of, looked down upon like anybody else. So if you're new to a country and still you can build yourself up and become anything, you can become a billionaire or something as a measure of success. And these kind of things, so it became it's not something that is told to people as much as it's something that was observed as the all-American story. And I think it's unique to America because only in America was the country where you could land from anywhere and become something so much more than you could ever become where you come from. And that was true. So I think it's uniquely American. I think in the other thing is that what it became is that the idea that you can become anything. There is nothing wrong with that, but I think the idea is that nobody asks what you truly want to become. You can become anything. It meant that every door is open, and that's not true, because just because you can become president doesn't mean you should become president. Does that, that is not for example, I can become an artist, but doesn't mean I should become an artist, because maybe I have nothing to contribute. So the question that needs to be asked, in my opinion, and that's what the book is that what is the thing that matters most to you? And what is it that you want to contribute to the world? And so it became from you can become anything as something that opens up to you can become anything. So why did you end up becoming a teacher? Because why didn't you go after? So if you think about it right now, the American dream became, in many ways, the American nightmare, because if you can't become anything, well, how come you're settling to becoming, an artist or a musician that does not get paid, or a teacher? Why didn't you go and accumulate as much money just like the other billionaires? So it started as the American dream where everything is possible and you can pursue, science, technology, any kind of field, which is amazing, music, anything, to now, well, if you haven't pursued the ultimate thing, which is, being a billionaire, being so rich, well, you're a lower form of life. That's what I see. That's kind of and that's, I think, how it got twisted. It has great early beginnings, but right now it's like, it's kind of a negative to a certain way.
We also have gotten to a place in society, in my experience, in memes and things on social media about it. So it's not just local observation of participation awards. I coach basketball for some youth teams, and at the end of the season, every single child got a trophy of some type. And that's very common in youth sports. Everybody gets something, even if it was just you came to the game. And to me, that's a tie-in to the you can be anything you want. It's a bit of a stretch, but I see that as part of a societal direction that they go hand in hand. Is that thing, a participation award, something that is prevalent outside the United States? Are you familiar with it? Do you see that anywhere?
I think there is. I have two opinions on it. I think there is nothing wrong with it to give people participation awards, as long as it says what it says. Like, if you give everyone, if you put everyone on equal footing, as in, if you scored 10, let's say, goals in a match or something, you're the same as someone who just came. That creates let's say, a false equivalence in people's minds and doesn't say the truth. I'm a very advocate of the facts and the truth, but you can say that being part of a team, everybody plays a role. And that's I think where it comes from. And I'm a big believer in that, because if you look at a company, it's kind of like when Kennedy, was it Kennedy, I think, when there was the space program and they asked the janitor, that's like a famous story, is like, what are you doing here? What is your job? And he says, I'm helping put a man on the moon. And in many ways, keeping, let's say, the desk clean of the scientists and making sure that nothing is out of place, these are important roles. Everybody in society has an important role. And the idea, that's what I came from, and the idea that only an engineer or a doctor, that's what you hated it. In fact, if you look at, let's say, I don't know if it's prevalent among people from my ethnicity or coming from Syria, but I hated that fact. I was like, I loved artists. And for me, artists, Picasso was like the biggest figure, or Dali, or, the musicians that I listened to. These are the people I dreamt to be of. I didn't dream to be a doctor as in like a status symbol. That was a status symbol because of the influence of what you can do. In many ways, America has all of the beautiful things about I think the human, let's say, state, and all of the ugly things, because that's who we are as human beings. We have, if you influence a lot of people and you give joy through your music, you should be kind of respected and revered for it and loved for it. But then they take it, as Americans do, and as we do. I mean, not just Americans, as human beings. Americans are just a representation of a human thing. But just because of freedom, we have all of these expressions. So in many ways, love it or hate it is the expression of the human state. You have those, and then you take it one step further. Just because you're a celebrity, you're like, closer to God than anything else. You're a celebrity, so everything you say matters, and everything, we have to take it so seriously. You're just a human being, just like us. You have things that you get wrong, and you have things that you get right. And the other thing, we do it as well with business. For example, just because Elon Musk, is great at certain areas, we think, well, it should be great in other areas. Let's run the government like a business, and we see the impact of that, not working out that well. So these are the things where there are some, just like any human state, there are things I love about America and all of the foundations and the right things. And we have to acknowledge that, just like anything, there are things that are not worked. And as human beings, the idea is to acknowledge, and that's what my book is about, is let's acknowledge that as a human being, you have a lot of things great about you, and there are a lot of things that sucks about you. Learn to see the truth for what it is, and learn to see where you want to go. And then your journey is your path towards that. Instead of, well, let me ignore the things that are bad about me and I'm all great, and lie to myself and lie to the world, and because it's easier. But internally, you look at the mirror and you'll know who you are, always.
Yeah, only unhappiness can lie on that path.
100%.
Yes. I want to go back to a phrase that you said before, just because you could doesn't mean you should. We use that within my family when we see a singer or an actor or somebody that is doing a performance and can't quite pull it off, or it's not quite what it should be, or even if they do it well, but it's not something we appreciate or understand the concept. That's a comment that we often make. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. You take it in a completely different direction, but it is fantastic, the concept of you could, maybe you did become the CEO of whatever company, but is that what you should have done? And without knowing those internal values that we come back to really in almost every discussion, because that's where it all starts. Without understanding that and being true to that, you can't do what you should do, whether it's more or less than some of the other things that maybe you could do.
That is so
very interesting.
When you said that, you reminded me of, these reality shows, like America's Got Talent or anything. You see sometimes people that show up there and you wonder, like, how did they get there? Didn't they hear their own voice? Then people around them hear them. Why didn't they tell them? And in many ways, like, it's fun to make fun of those people, but it's very revealing of the human condition. When I started to play guitar, the people I looked up to and the people I wanted to kind of imitate were the best in the world. And I was like, that's where I want to go. And I think there's this, I don't know the actual name of it. I think it's like, it's self-awareness, but it's self-awareness of your ability to measure your own level in a certain skill set, like to understand that are you good or not, or how good are you? That's a very, not everyone has it, but it's a very important one. And you develop that by opening yourself up. See, if you're not sheltered, if you read a lot, if you explore a lot, if you learn a lot, all of that. But then there is the responsibility of the society around you that tells you that. And we see that right now. We see it in the media when, you kind of pamper certain people. You acknowledge somebody's genius, and somebody else is looking like, that's not genius, that's stupid. And you see that. And I mean, if you look at the American Idol, somebody would show up there and they're like, not even singing. I was like, and they say, well, I have, some of them will say, well, I have a teacher, or, everybody around me tells me how awesome I am. I was like, who are the people you're around? And are they equally as responsible? I would say yes. And I say, that's why you should in life explore and seek feedback. I wrote once that article, feedback is not feedback until it hurts. We hate feedback. There's nobody, I don't care how open you are, how incredibly, comfortable and confident in yourself. Feedback that is true feedback hurts. The person that I love the most, my wife, she has the harshest feedback for me. It's so hard to do anything. I can tell you, like, I can count on my hand the times in my life that she said, you've done something good. All the time, whenever I show her an article or I play something, it's like, you could have done this. I remember even writing poetry for her. This is like iconic. I wrote poetry for her and she sent it back with corrections, grammar corrections on my freaking poetry. Like, I'm writing poetry for the woman I love more than life itself. And she sent it back with corrections to the grammar.
At the bottom, it's just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Exactly right. It should be. But I can tell you that woman has made me the best person I can be. Because if it wasn't for that, at first I'm angry. It's like, and I'm trying to convince her. And then when I just let go, because I'm human at the end of the day, that's why I say, I don't care how much enlightened or informed you are, real feedback hurts. So it hurts me because I'm presenting something to her and I'm trying to negotiate with her. Like, no, I wrote it this way, or I did that. And she doesn't budge, which is why she's awesome. And then I have to relent and come back and say, well, let me see if she's right. And I write a better thing. I write a better article. I do better work. She's also my partner in business in my last 5 ventures because she's the person that holds me accountable the most. But in life, we don't seek those people. We seek people who are pleased by us. It's just a natural thing. And if you really want a life that is better, seek people that are so honest with you and so truthful that they are a mirror to you, because that's what will cause you to develop. But we don't do that as human beings. We like to feel comfortable. We like to surround ourselves in our bubble. We don't seek opinions that disagree with us.
There's a study that I've read, narrated books that have cited this study, and I don't have the citation with me, but basically the outcome of it was that 80% of the people rate themselves as a better than average driver. If you're talking about a skill set, it goes directly to your point of we don't understand where we are on a scale. We tend to overrate ourselves against a true ability. I would have a very difficult time taking the role of doing something as your wife would do, to point out things. And it's a very interesting personal story there that brings us, it should stay in our mind in our own relationships as we encourage others through feedback and as people encourage us through feedback, because it should be difficult.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what's the point? Just continued platitudes that you continue on in your comfort zone, right?
Yeah. The way I look at it is that the reason why you want that is not because you seek pain. I mean, if you want to do something just for joy, who cares? But if you want to do something, with impact, and you want to get to a certain place, difficulty is just part of it. So if for example, I'm just walking on a treadmill and I just want to walk here, Who cares if I'm walking right, if I'm, doing, it's like, I just want to walk. I just want to do something fun, or I'm doodling on a paper. But if I want to set myself up to achieve something, to achieve a certain level, then failure is part of the process. That's one of the first things we teach entrepreneurs. We teach them that the fact is you need to get comfortable with failure right away, and you need to get comfortable, and you need to be your own, because sometimes you don't have people around you that give you feedback. You need to take that feedback, and you need to look for that feedback. Even indifference is feedback. So you need to look at them, and you need to always look for the fault in your work, not for the things that are working. Because the market doesn't care. Life doesn't care. Life will throw everything at you. I have this metaphor, the captain and the sea. The sea will be what the sea will be. It will throw waves at you. It will throw storms at you. It will send you in a complete different direction. It doesn't care about you. You can be the most skilled captain, and you've been doing captaining a ship for 20 years. The sea doesn't care. If there's a storm, it will throw at you. And maybe it will give somebody else the ride of their life. It will get them exactly to the treasure island without doing anything. What we call having a golden spoon in life. That doesn't matter. The sea will do what the sea will do. Life will do what it does. What is it? I think Mike Tyson says that is like everybody has a plan until they got punched in the face. And the market and life will punch you in the face enormous amount of times. So if you don't see it like that, if you say, well, life has something wrong with it, and nothing wrong here, and this, it's not about being wrong, but it's just about that what you're doing is not working towards what you're going, or this is the feedback. So basically, when you're trying to walk, you stumble your way to walking, and unless you figure out the best way to walking, you're never going to walk. So that is how we learn. That's the nature of humanity. And if we acknowledge this and we're real with it, then we start achieving things. If we throw a hoop and if it goes out and we say, no, it's in, then we're never going to get it in, because what's the difference? But if we acknowledge, hey, I missed it. Okay, let me try to get it in. And we try to learn from every step we make, and we look at failure as a learning opportunity. That is when life starts giving us what we want from it. That's when we start sensing and really tasting what achievement is like and what accomplishment is like. And I think that is what's missing right now, because I have many beefs of how we teach people. And I love the education, and of course we need to do more of it. But the problem is we teach people the same way that corporations need us to operate. You learn, you study, then you want to do the right thing. And when you do the right thing, you pass and you go to the next. So you spend a year trying to get things right and trying to memorize and trying to learn so that you can get it right on the exam, and then you pass. Life doesn't work that way. Life works like, okay, you do some things like, oh, that didn't work. Okay, let me try something. And we're not talking, of course, when you're a doctor, you have to study. When you're an engineer building bridges, of course, there are certain laws that you have to learn. When you're in chemistry or in engineering, there are certain things that you have to study because in that field itself. But in art, just start drawing and see if people try to find what your path is. In writing, in life, in talking to people in conversation, these are things that are highly dynamic. And the learning comes from the engagement and from being there. And that is what we're missing. If we treat everything like school, like people saying, well, I can't talk to someone. You see all these, the people who fall for the manosphere, men who can't talk to girls. Well, why can't they have to go to a course to learn how to talk to a girl? It doesn't make any sense. The way you talk to a girl is by talking to girls. And the first few times you're going to, have your foot in your mouth. And then you learn like, oh, this works, this doesn't work, and you learn that. But how can you learn how to talk to people by not talking to people, by going to a course to learn to talk to people? Now, of course, there are people who have, let's say, some challenges, challenged in the way they speak. Yeah, that's fine. But the general of us, the reason is because we're isolated. We have lost the ability to engage with people. So we engage like Twitter. So that's where we spend all the time. So we talk to people in real life like we talk on Twitter. And that's not real life. Real life is when we engage, we talk, we engage in conversations. And guess what? There are 8 billion people around. By the 1,000 conversation, let's say you're going to lose the first 1,000. Are you telling me after 1,000 conversation you don't learn how to say hello? But we're so afraid of failure. We want to get it right from the first moment that we're willing to spend years without any engagement, just so that we can get the first conversation right. And guess what? With a person that doesn't even know us, and maybe they don't end up in our lives. So we have this we twisted ourselves into pretzels, trying to figure out life, when life is right there, and the best way to figure out is to kind of navigate it and engage with it. And that's what I was hoping to get people, like, just engage in life and see what it gives you back, and then do it again and see what it gives you back. Just like how you learn guitar, just like how you learn singing, just like how you learn how to walk and how to engage in conversation, how to build relationships.
Fantastic insights. One I had not heard before is that indecision or indifference is feedback too. It's something we should bear in mind quite often from both directions. Our own indifference to someone else, especially those we love or those we care about. We'll see it coming back at us, but a lot of times we don't pay any attention to how we put it out there. That's a strong piece of advice. Our time's about up, and I have a final two, and I haven't even touched my list of questions. I've done like 4 out of the 25 things that I have from your material and from just pat questions that we go to. But let's get down to the last 2. I always close the podcast with the same 2 questions. I'm going to give them both to you at the same time so you can think about one maybe, or have it mulling in your subconscious. A very popular book in the United States and worldwide, I assume, is Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. I'm going to ask you just for 2 or 3, if you have those, of things that you do on a daily basis that you find fundamental to your lifestyle, whether it's meditation, mindfulness, a morning routine, an evening routine, mantras. If you have anything you'd like to share that you have found to be very beneficial to staying on course and, as you say, embracing authenticity, something that would help our users on a day-to-day habit level, be interested in hearing those. And then if there's anything that I missed that you would have liked for me to ask about, if there's a piece of information you'd like to put out there, a service you provide, a book you'd like to recommend, or just a final piece of advice, I'd ask you to share that with the listeners as well, and take as much time as you like. And when you've answered that, when we got through that information, we'll do a wrap up here and we'll be done with the episode. So take it away.
Thank you for the questions. They're wonderful. I love Stephen Covey's book. Actually, I read, I think, all of his books that I could have access to. Brilliant insights. And what I would say, I think one of the biggest habits that I do that kind of make me the person I am is I'm constantly engaging in reading outside of, let's say, the areas of interest that I have. So I remember, so I'm a big buff of, let's say, self-help books. I think I read hundreds. I can't remember. My Audible is like filled with lists, and I keep coming back and reading them. And I read anything from sales to productivity to mindset. But sometimes I engage in things that are completely out. Like, for example, my interest in Civil War, American Civil War, I was interested. And things like that got me to actually help someone that is dear and near for me from falling down the rabbit hole of right-wing kind of, and it was something completely out of, let's say, the thing I would do. I usually advise people on what to do with their lives and stuff like that. And if it wasn't for me being informed of what we call the right-wing pipeline, whatever you fit on let's say the political spectrum, one of the biggest things is that I'm totally against lies and misinforming people and confusing the facts. So there was this attempt to kind of sanitize the movement of the South or the Confederates, and there were someone through the gaming community was falling into playing a game as a Confederate, and like he was trying to say, well, Robert E. Lee is a great guy and people don't understand him, he's a strategist and all of that. And because I learned about that history, I advised him to read. I read these great courses, and I go through them. I said, read a great course. I didn't tell him, it's easy to tell him you're wrong and all of that. But because I was informed and I was reading, I read a lot about psychology and how to have nonviolent communication or conversations where you can share your opinions and allow the other to be also not feel that they're wronged or not feel that they're attacked. So I told him, okay, it's great that you're interested. My recommendation is to come back to, this was a university course, read this course, and then let's have a conversation. I'm interested to have this conversation, but you need to be informed. Get the full picture and let's have, and that person was one of the dearest person in my life, and I wanted him to be informed when making the decisions. And that interest of me picking up whatever sends my way, I listen to all kind of political spectrum, I read anything that comes my way, is a very helpful thing in today's world, because you're going to have conversations, and you can't say like in the past, when you go to work and you say, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion, don't talk about sex. And right now, if you look at the world, these are the things that are the most discussed. They're the most present and the most influential in who people even choose to be around. So you have to get comfortable in having those conversations. And I'm sorry, if your interest is only this limited, and that's why I'm against the idea of focus, like everything in your life need to align with what you're working on. You need to have an area in your life where your openness allows for new ideas to enter your world. And you can't do that without opening yourself up to the things that you disagree with, to the things that sometimes annoy you and sometimes make you uncomfortable. Another way of saying it, in a simple way, if you're not uncomfortable, you're not being open enough, you're not engaging in life deeply enough. You have to engage in life to the point that you meet something or you touch with something that's uncomfortable, and then you ask yourself, why am I uncomfortable? So that is something that have been highly impactful in my life. The other thing that balances that out, because if you want to be uncomfortable, you have to find areas of comfort. I think that is searching for what real joy means. We engage in our lives. I've had this vision board that used to have on it climbing Mount Everest, having a red Mercedes SLS, becoming the best coach like Anthony Robbins. And I had all these 9 things that I wanted to, in every area of my life, to be the best, And I asked myself one of the most important things, and I continue to ask myself, and it's the question that you have to ask yourself almost every day, or at least once a week. What is the one thing that if I don't have right now, nothing in the world matters? So when I asked myself that question, it was around 2008, 2009, and it was a happy, healthy family at the time. I had my second kid, and it was so present, it was so shocking that I didn't have any of that in my vision board, even though they're the most important thing for me. And I didn't want it tomorrow or the next week or the next month. I wanted it now, in the moment. So that thing that matters most to you is something you want right now. And it's something that if it's present right now, nothing in the world matters. And if you anchor yourself in that and you seek it, you will experience true joy. True joy is the path towards it and having it again and again. You never get satisfied from it. It's like, if you love ice cream, or some sort of food that it's only available in seasons, not always available, and when you have it, you're like, oh my God, that's it. That kind of feeling, that the thing that matters most to you will give you that feeling every time you have it. You can never get bored of it. And once you experience that, you start seeing things that you want to accomplish, which are perfectly fine, being rich, having the cars, having whatever it is that you want. You start seeing them, but you start seeing them as nice things to have, that when you have them, you're happy a little bit, but then they become normal, like anything else. So you differentiate true joy from moments of happiness,
happiness versus joy.
Exactly. And that has been probably the most insightful thing that I continue to engage with and continue to learn what it means to me and continue to explore areas of depth. And to answer your second question, I would definitely love for people to engage with my writing and engage with my book. You can find me at husseinhalak.com and for my book. And what I would only ask is that find something to teach people around you. That would be my calling for people. Find something that you can contribute and teach people around you. That has been probably, if there's one practice that I've done in my life that opened up doors that I've never thought that would open, is the willingness to contribute when I thought I didn't have enough to contribute. So sometimes we think I have to be, at this level in order to help others. I remember playing guitar for people when I was just training, but it wasn't to show off. It was more like I wanted the joy of us engaging together, and I wanted. So when you want to contribute, even as little, it's such a great thing, and it opens up so many doors, and you start leveling up because you want to contribute more. It's once you experience it, you want more, and that is my wish for your audience and whoever is listening, and those are my answers.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. It's been a great time. Appreciate your time, your willingness to be here, and your insights. I learned a lot. It's very valuable. Listeners, this is Hussein Halak, author of The Dark Art of Life Mastery, entrepreneur, strategist, and I'm going to throw in one more to go at the bottom of your list or on your list somewhere, polymath. Just a great range of topics to discuss, and I appreciate your time. Thanks for being with us, and maybe we'll get a chance to do it again. Thank you, Hussein.
Thank you for having me, Russell. It's been a beautiful conversation. I enjoyed it thoroughly.